session 1. I would therefore hand over the microphone to Ms. Kodiaziz to coordinate the technical section 2. Ms. Kodiaziz, can you hear me? Okay.
Just a minute. There is an announcement I would like to make. ISW, MAW, and Widener University, USA published the Journal of Solid Waste Technology and Management, JSWTM. For publication, send your full article to journal swtm@iswmaw.com in the for publication in the November and December issue of the journal. So the journal is asking for papers for publication of its November and December issue. Okay, so it's a bi-monthly journal, and we are accepting papers for the November and December 2023 issue. Thank you so much. I hand over the microphone to Ms. Kodiaziz to coordinate the technical session too. Thank you, Al-Hassan, Dr. Al-Hassan Sulemana, and over to you, Kodi.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you so much for the insightful session and your coordination, Dr. Suleiman. As we know, this second session that we are doing today will focus on, the second session we are doing today will focus on waste management in Ghana. We have two co-chairs with us that are formidable individuals. Our first one is Chukuru Vinsatari Prasad, Director Yati Integrated Waste. And then we have Ms. Ama Afori Antwi, who's the Secretary of the Environmental Service Providers. We welcome you and hope that you can accept this position. So before we begin, I'd like to give a biography in Shwamiva Jate. Swashamiva Jate. Thank you. Swashamiva Jate, Integrated Waste Management, LLP. Tarapti and completed 9 ventures of apartment complexes, about 400 flats. Served Alltel Incorporated, Atlanta, USA. Studied PG in Computer Science in Clark Atlanta University, USA, and a Bachelor in Engineering, RV College of Engineering, 1994. A resourceful person with a vision in political affairs and development initiatives. Ms. Ama Afori Antwi is the Executive Secretary of the Environmental Service Providers Association, the umbrella body of the private waste management companies in Ghana. She has a master's in philosophy from the University of Ghana in social work and doubles up as a consultant in the environment and sanitation space. She has been on a number of international and local platforms, serving as a voice and strong force for her members. We welcome our co-chairs and hope that they accept the position. So our first presentation is going to be the role of informal sector in waste management by Dr. Ebenezer Faruku Amankwa, Senior Lecturer at University of Ghana, Accra, Ghana. Dr. Ebenezer F. Amankwa is a Senior Lecturer at the Department of Geography and Resource Development, University of Ghana. He is an affiliate of the African Academy of Sciences, and his research promotes inclusive development and environmental sustainability. Request Dr. Ebenezer Faruku Amankwa to deliver his speech. Your time is 12 minutes. Please unmute and share your screen. Dr. Amankwa, if you can please hear me, if you can share your screen, turn on your video, please, and then unmute yourself to begin your presentation.
Yeah, I can hear you. Let me just share that. Can you make me a co-host to be able to share my screen, please?
Dinesh, please make him the co-host.
No, you can directly make a presentation, no problem.
Okay. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, please take to the presentation mode. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction, Coordinator. Today, I'm talking on the role of informal sector in solid waste management. I'm sharing some reflections from Ghana. The point of departure for my talk is the SDG 6. That seeks to ensure that we all have access to water and sanitation and not leaving anyone behind. What that means is that solid waste management policy must not seek services for some, but it should seek access for all. So the policy must be relevant and appropriate. But in most cities in sub-Saharan African countries, the policy mimics the Western experience and practices, which is often inappropriate, irrelevant, and harmful. And what comes to mind is the polluter pays principle. So how are we able to deal with the challenges in the solid waste management system? And today I want to shed light on how the informal sector can contribute to improving our solid waste management architecture in Ghana. This is a solid waste management value chain, which I believe you are all familiar with. It starts with the generation, and then at a community level, where a lot of the segregation to reduce the waste, do a lot of the composting, and then sorting for the recyclables occur. And I believe a lot has been said about that. I won't belabor the point. But to say that in Ghana, there are a lot of activities ongoing when it comes to the waste stream. When it comes to the storage and the collection, is done by both the formal and then the informal sector. And once they collect it, they move it to the transfer and the haulage stage. And this is where they also do a lot of sorting, segregation, and they move to the final stage, which is the treatment and disposable facility. And in the treatment stage, that is where a lot of the circular economy activities also come in. We talk of the biodegradables, waste to energy, all trying to add value and then try to see waste as a resource before the remaining bit is taken to the landfills. Okay, just some little bit of history. If you want to understand the historical overview of the waste industry in Ghana, it can be understood within 3 different time periods or 3 epochs. And the first one is a science-motivated approach period, which is the pre-colonial to early post-independence era, where the colonial masters try to zone communities and local areas to try and provide tailor-made local services to neighborhoods. And the second epoch is around the 1970s, which is the stomach direction approach, where due to the structural adjustment program that Ghana entered into, there was a lot of neoliberal activities. The economy was neoliberalized, and there was a participation from private sector. And here it was marked with the introduction of the Central Communal Container Collection System, the CCC, and then the house-to-house or door-to-door collection system for the middle and high-income areas. And then post that period, we have the third epoch, which is the consolidation phase, beginning the 1985 to now, where we see a lot of changes in how this CCC and HH has panned out in different areas. So the current state of waste management in Ghana can be also illustrated within these 4 domains. The first is the centrally collected, which I mentioned earlier, and then the house-to-house collection. And these arrangements, the type and nature have metamorphosed depending on the changes that we've witnessed in government over the years. And the third tier is the policy regime change, where government, yes, has some control, but we see a lot of transition where government no longer is the sole control of resources, but try to provide a facilitative role and then the enabling framework for private sector to come in. And that has also led to the fourth one, where there is this kind of public-private partnership in waste management in Ghana, where the public sector is a purchaser of the services on behalf of citizens. So they franchise the services to the private sector, which is a service provider, and they, put in the necessary arrangements, formal, informal, to make sure they collect waste. And most of the activities, if you read the literature, shows that they obscure the status of waste, which should be seen as a public waste management, which should be seen as a public good. So in the next few slides, I want to show you these short videos to at least give you a sense of what is happening in Accra in terms of waste management. These sites are very common. This is Kolegono, one of the low-income, middle-income communities in Accra. There's a backyard of a public institution which has been turned into a dump site or a transfer station where a lot of the tricycles, which we call in the local parlance, the kaya bola, come to collect these recyclables that have been sorted for further treatment and value addition. Then we have this scene also, which is a part of Old Fadama, which is an informal settlement in the city of Accra, which has been involved with waste and become a big dump site, which is affecting settlements and also choking the Kole Lagoon, which has also led to other issues in the city like flooding and other management challenges. And an aspect of this site is also the electronic waste site, which is the e-waste dump in Aboboishi, arguably the world's largest e-waste site. We've done some work there over the years. This is where they burn the wires and other materials to extract copper and valuables in the midst of environmental health challenges. Then this final video shows us the Lavender Hill, which is also in Accra, where household waste collected from septic tank is also being directly discharged into the sea and then joins the Atlantic Ocean. And also along the beach, you find fishermen whose fish nets are also trapped with waste materials. So in all of these, how do we bring the informal sector or properly integrate them into the conversation, into the waste management architecture, so that they can help us deal with some of these challenges that we face in the city of Accra and other major cities in the country? So the role of informal sector, I'll just talk briefly about two issues. The first one is the missing link that we see in the waste management chain. And this missing link is witnessed in the fact that city authorities solely focus on the formal sector, which I see it as a misplaced priority. Because in Ghana, the informal sector collects about 40% of all the solid waste that is generated in the city of Accra. And the activities of informal sector is responsible for the 30% increase in waste collection coverage, which has been reported in recent times. When you talk about electronic waste in the country, about 95% of all the scraps, the e-waste used locally from the informal sector, and this is where they use to produce the iron rods and other manufacturing items. And in view of that, Ghana is able to export metal scraps to over 30 countries across the globe. And this represents about $2.4 million in terms of trade revenue. All of this championed by the so-called informal sector, which is often unrecognized, stigmatized, and marginalized. Then the other aspect of the role of informal sector I want to talk about is what I call a tale of an uneasy partnership. So on one hand, we see them to be part of the waste management architecture. They are also sidelined and they have not been properly integrated in the playing field. And I'll just talk about a few issues why I say so. The first is that there is a subcontracting for the formal sector by these informal workers. So there are some communities, low income, middle income neighborhoods, where due to the topography or the challenges with delays in picking up waste, collecting waste, they have subcontracted some informal operators to collect the waste on their behalf. There are some areas where there are big trucks of the big companies like Zoom Lion and the others are not able to navigate to be able to collect the waste from the households. And so it's this informal tricycle operators, which we call the kaya ballers, that are able to do that. And they contribute significantly in collecting waste from such remote or inaccessible areas. So obviously they fill in the gaps in the waste management or the waste collection side of the value chain. And they also help in
hello, please, Dr. or Professor Mankwa, please, if you can speed your presentation up, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. They provide affordable and flexible services. These low-income areas have been underserved and neglected, and they provide on-demand services, and then also payment is negotiable, which is very good for them. And so the next thing is, how can we provide that interface for both the formal and informal sectors? And the role of NGOs, associations are very critical. And here I want to mention Environmental Services Providers Association, ESPA, which is part of the organizing institutions for this event, who are trying to regularize their activities and provide a voice for these workers. So in the end, what we want to see is that the public-private sector relationship should not be laced with that suspicion, mistrust, and tension. And everybody must be seen as a supreme advocate and part of the cause to champion our national interests when it comes to waste management in the country. So in conclusion, I want us to revisit the 7 R's for sustainable waste management system. And here, I call for the informal sector to be centrally placed within this framework, where they help us to rethink how we even conceptualize waste, not just as a used material to be dumped, but material to be material that is a resource that can recreate value within the urban economy. And in doing so, we need to be mindful of all these aspects of the framework. And I've added the ROT, which is very important because they also help to create valuable resources from the food waste and organics by home composting. And I believe if you're able to do that, we will be able to reap the benefits of integrating the informal sector into the management architecture and thereby contributing to improve waste management in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amankwa. Please, we request that you stop sharing your presentation and then mute your mic. Reminder, questions can go in the chat box and they will be answered at the end of the session. For our next presentation, we have our topic, food losses and wastage at vending points and households in the Kumasi metropolitan area. We'd like to, yes.
Cordy, can I interrupt? Cordy, I have written also in the chat box, because Mr. E.V. Parlikar now just called me. He is in Sri Lanka, but he is able to present now. So in that way, you can invite him before our next presenter. Okay. And he will speak for 10 minutes. He is already there online.
Okay. So next to the mark, then we'll invite, our discussion will be on policy and legal framework for adoption of circular economy in India. And we have Mr. UV Palakar. Ulis Palakar served as the Director of Geocycle Business, ACC Limited, and the head Geocycle India, a global consultant providing strategies for sustainable waste management, circular economy, policy advocacy, AFRs, and co-processing. With 41 years of experience in Hindustan Lever Limited, National Peroxide Limited, ACC, Limited and owned consultancy, MTech from IIT Madras, and senior management and senior leadership programs in IMD Switzerland. I request that Dr. Palakar to deliver his speech. Your time is 10 minutes. Please unmute and share your screen.
Thank you very much. Can you listen to me, and is my screen visible?
We can.
Yes, we can hear you and your screen is visible.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I was stuck somewhere and, able to join now. What I'm going to suggest, what I am going to present is about the policy frameworks, which, in India, we have formulated to promote the circular economy. As you know, circular economy is becoming a very, very important requirement of the mankind today to deal with the environmental concerns, the climate change impacts, the conservation of the natural resources, and also to be able to sustain our mankind and life cycle in an appropriate manner. So I will cover very clearly, very quickly, some of the rules, how Indian government is promoting circular economy. The first one is the solid waste management rules, which is municipal solid waste. So first important requirement is source segregation. So there's a mandate which has come in the rules to segregate the waste at the household level in 3 fractions at least. One is the wet, second is the dry, and third is the domestic hazardous waste. There's a requirement which has been mentioned in the rules that the organic or the kitchen fraction has to be converted either into the compost or biogas or bio-CNG, and can be and should be utilized for the vehicle or the thermal processes. The material recovery facility have to be built by the municipality or supporting agencies so that we can segregate the recyclable materials and other materials so that recycling can be promoted. Like, for example, glass, metals, recyclable plastics, etc. And there would be some materials which are like non-recyclable combustible materials like torn clothes, old clothes, non-recyclable plastics. Then you have the single-use plastics, you have multi-filament multi-layer plastics, and materials of that kind, tires, tubes, pieces, etc., which do not have any recyclable value, should be sent to the cement plants or waste to energy as a source of fuel. Domestic hazardous waste has to be properly segregated and sent for sanitary disposal, and street sweepings and construction and demolition waste needs to be managed separately. So there should be no contamination of these street sweepings and construction demolition waste into the municipal solid waste. What are we achieving in the process? Whatever is the ingredient in the municipal solid waste, each ingredient gets gainfully utilized for the benefit of the mankind. That is the purpose of this particular rule. The next rule is the hazardous and other waste management rule. Here, the rule very clearly defines that waste management hierarchy has to be respected by all who are generating waste. So if there is an option to reduce, avoid, recycle, reuse, etc., those higher recycling options or the higher waste management hierarchy options have to be respected, and the authorities have to give appropriate authorizations to these industries to ensure that it gets utilized in that manner for gainful purposes. Landfill and incineration options have to be the last, and only when there's no other option available for utilization. If there are option of recycling and co-processing of waste feasible in the cement kiln or in other applications, they should be promoted by the authorities and encouraged by the industries to implement them. And all the schedules associated with this particular waste management rules have been revised to align with the circular economy principles. The third rule, which is very important, is the Plastic Waste Management Rules 2016, which was amended in 2022. The plastic waste needs to be gainfully recycled or co-processed. That is the mandate which has been given in the rules. The provision of extended producer responsibility has been introduced so that the producers, brands, and the importers of plastic waste or plastic products, they have an obligation to take back all the material which they are putting into the market and ensure that it is properly recycled or gainfully managed in the cement kilns. In this particular rule also, the waste management hierarchy has to be respected. And co-processing and recycling options have been recognized as the sustainable options for waste management in this particular rule. We have construction and demolition waste
Mr.
management.
Pralakar,
Finishing.
please, if you can speed your presentation, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm finishing. Thank you. So construction and demolition waste, here this waste has to be separately handled and not to be mixed with municipal waste. And this has to be converted into large aggregates and small aggregates and utilized for the construction purposes. We have electronic waste management rules where also the rare earth metals or the heavy metals or the precious metals have to be recovered by sending the electronic waste for the recycling to the recycling industry. And also whatever are the leftovers, whether it is plastic, glass, metals, they should be sent across for the recycling purposes. So in conclusion, the Indian policy framework is completely aligned to the principles of circular economy. Its implementation is progressing with strong impetus at this point in time. We are very happy to say that the benefits of this are being seen, and the objective or the target that Indian government has put to achieve net zero by 2070, these particular rules are contributing substantially. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I hope I have made justice to the topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pralakar. So just a quick announcement. You can please note there will be 2 special sessions on 90 minutes each on the 13th ICON SWM CE and IPLA GF 2023 in Mumbai during November 29th through December 2nd, 2023 on hybrid mode. Those who are interested to participate as a speaker, please write to Dr. Sulamana, Sulamana90gh@yahoo.com, and Professor Sandan K. Ghosh at sandashkghosh@gmail.com, and Professor Michael Koch at mi.koch@yahoo.com. You can find all of this information in the chat box, and you can also write your name, affiliation, email ID, and mobile on this chat box if you are indeed interested in that. To move to our next presentation, we're going to have solid waste management in Ghana, challenges and prospects with cases by Dr. Kofi Sacheri Boating, consultant at Africa Environmental Sanitation Consult Limited, Accra, Ghana. Dr. Kofi Sacheri Boating is a public health professional with expertise in environmental health specialties in solid waste management, occupational health and safety, food safety, and project operations and management. He currently combines lecturing and consultancy in the area of environment and public health. His research interests include solid waste management governance, financing, occupational health and safety and waste management industry, and food and safety principles. I request that Dr. Kofi Sacheri Boating to deliver his speech. Your time is 12 minutes. Please unmute your mic and share your screen.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, Dr. Sacheri. Can you please share your screen as well?
Okay.
And if you can place your presentation in full screen mode for us, please.
Screen mode. Share. Want to share the screen? Yeah. Screen mode. Screen mode. Screen mode.
Hello, Dr. Sacheri.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. You're a little bit faint.
You can hear me?
Yes. I don't know if it's
Okay.
possible to reposition yourself. And can you please click the full screen mode presentation in your PowerPoint?
Okay, give me 1 minute.
Oh, that's
Thank you
good.
very much.
Okay. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. It's better.
Okay, so good afternoon, and then thank you very much for having me. Thanks for the coordinators, Professor Goose and your team from India, and then Dr. Suleimana and your team from Ghana. So briefly, I want to talk on solid waste management in our cities, looking at Ghana situation. And then most of the presenters have alluded to some of the things I will talk about. So briefly, this is going to be my outline of presentation. Just to give you some few issues bordering challenges in the waste management sector in Ghana, and most especially in the solid aspect. So let me say that Ghana has done very well in terms of waste management. Looking back from what Dr. Foucault even said, if you take for the past decade what we have done so far, you could see that with the introduction of the private sector, the solid waste management sector has improved tremendously. But having said that, I think that there are still certain bottlenecks. And so you can see that in most parts of our cities, solid waste is still thrown indiscriminately, and it is having a lot of issues. You have household waste management being a bit of problematic because of ineffectiveness and then unaffordability. You have areas where skip containers are not enough and therefore poorly located as well. You also have regular door-to-door collection services, but reasonably widespread, and then mostly in selected areas, which not good. There are problems also with waste disposal and landfill sites, which we have discussed a lot. Moreover, waste reduction and then the reuse issues and activities remain extremely localized. In fact, we haven't gone to the extent of what India is doing, and the informal sector collection business has become dominant, just like Dr. Foucault said. And the question is, why this case? So looking at a model designed by Wilson and his team some time ago, Wilson looked at how waste management should be done, and then how you can assess or measure the performance of a city in terms of waste management. And so he looked at the governance aspect and then the fiscal aspect. So we have looked at this aspect, comparing it to what Ghana is doing, and then we have come up with some few findings from our studies, and we want to share this with people on this platform. So looking at what Wilson did, Wilson break the whole system into two. One, the physical, and then the second one being the governance aspect. So under the governance aspect, Wilson pay more attention to the financial sustainability, inclusivity, which is the user and the providers, and then sound institutions, and then proactive policies. Under the physical, Wilson looked at the public health, which is the collection, the environment and treatment and disposal, then the resource value, which we are still talking about. Now, if you look at the current waste management system, briefly, you can see that it starts from storage, collection, transfer, and then the treatment. But the question is, what are the challenges faced in this country in terms of the collection? So just like Professor Foucault said, you go to most of our cities, you can see some of these things there. And so looking at the entire challenges, if you want to break it down, we have inadequate receptacles for solid waste. We have difficult to locate the acquired landfill site, and then rapid urbanization, which is exploring the service quality. We have poor responses to waste minimization issues, and then uncontrolled proliferation of squatter settlement. We also have logistical constraints in addition to inadequate service coverage. So in most cities, this is a city of Nigeria, Kano, you see that solid waste management has become a problem because of these challenges. And these are some part of Ghana, and then some part of Ghana as well. You also go to Adam site, and there are still issues on the disposal side. Then there's also this, what we call the emerging issues, which is becoming a problem, the plastic waste. And Africa generates about 70 million tons of plastic waste annually. And then only 12% of this plastic waste is recycled. So you look at most of the African countries, just like I showed, you have most of them having problem with these plastic waste issues. Then you look at Ghana, we have about 2.58 million tons of plastic waste imported, and then only 90% is reused. You see that annual plastic waste generation in Ghana is estimated to be 730,000 metric tons, or less than 0.1% of plastic waste is recycled in Ghana. The rest ends up in the environment, which we have to look at. Then also, just like what Dr. Foucault said about our plastic informal sector, the informal sector is dominating a lot. But the question is, are they helping or rather creating more problems? And you can see the picture of an informal sector waste collector, which is creating a serious health hazard. This is what you see in most of our cities by the informal sector. And these are some of the things they do. So again, if you look at the other aspect of what Wilson said in the governance, you see that financial sustainability is one of the key things he mentioned. The second thing is the user inclusivity, and then sound institutions, and then proactive policies. So what are we looking at here? Looking at what Wilson said, and then what they have presented and what is happening now, we realize that there's poor governance structure in a system of waste management, which is bringing about these issues, challenges we are looking at. So currently, you look at the policy or the structure being managed by waste management here, you see that there's a Ministry of Sanitation somewhere, there's a Ministry of Local Government somewhere, and then there's a disconnect between the coordination. Now you come to the metropolitan areas, you see that it is the metropolitan areas who are the implementers of policies. These people are working under the Ministry of Local Government. You come to the Municipal Waste Management Department, and they have to do zoning, contracting, doing manual supervision and monitoring, and then looking at fee fixing. Again, you look at the waste management companies, and you see that they are doing monitoring and then supervision, they are doing recruitment, doing revenue collection, and then collecting the waste as well. But you come to household are supposed to generate the waste, and at the end of the day, pay the revenue through revenue collected. So again,
Dr. Boateng, please, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, so to move on with, we realize that based on the two scenarios, you could see that clearly there's a weak governance and poor financing structure being a major challenge in the waste sector, and that is what is creating a major challenge in the waste sector in Ghana. And this, I think that can also happen in most of our sister countries. So yeah, you look at poor proper zoning of cities not being clear, you have poor monitoring of operations of solid waste management companies, and then lack of clarity of rules by the ministries. So again, you look at the issue of weak enforcement of bylaws and sanctions. Most of the people who responded to our study indicated that about 84.6% of service providers disclosed their views are not considered in the review of arrangement of fee fixing. So clearly, you see that the governance structure is poor, and for that matter, we recommend that there should be an independent authority that will help in the governance structure. Now, what we propose is that the independent authority will look at implementation of policies and strategies, innovative funding sources, standardization and regulation, ensuring regular inclusivity monitoring, and then monitoring and evaluation, research, data, and then capacity building. So let me move faster because of my time to say that.
Yes, if you can please wrap in the next minute.
There are implications for having this sector. What is going to happen if you get a good governance structure, you are going to have private sector coming in to invest in the sector. So you can have this kind of things being invested by private sector. You have private sector looking at circular economy issue and then improving the solid waste situation. And then we look at a scene created by Kigali. Because of proper formal governance structure, Kigali has managed to make sure that their city is clean. And you go to their CBD and you can see a cleaner city. Let me just end because of time to say that the issue of policy is very important in solid waste management. So any national strategy for waste management must be more specific to provide the government with direction. An independent body formed to coordinate the multi-sectorial environmental sanitation activity is very necessary. We also need a sustainable financing arrangement for management of solid waste in Ghana. The private sector confidence is boosted if we're able to put in place good policy and then financial structure. So the current governance structure for solid waste management in Ghana is weak and does not support sustainable and effective optimal waste delivery. And therefore, we recommend that there should be an independent authority to make sure that most of the issues, the policies are driven by this authority. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boateng. I request that you stop sharing your presentation and mute your microphone. Our next presentation is food losses and wastage at vending points and households in the Kumasi metropolitan area. I invite Dr. Kojo Miza, Director or Lecturer at the Department of Environmental Science at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Kumasi, Ghana. Dr. Kojo Miza holds a BSc degree in chemistry, a master in philosophy, and PhD degrees in environmental science. His area of specialization is in waste management, bioprocessing of materials, and bioenergy production. He is also affiliated with Solid Waste Association of North America and the Society of Petroleum Engineers. Kojo is a fellow of the Africa Research Impact Network, Africa Environmental Sanitation Council, and the International Earth Conservation. I requested Dr. Kojo Miza to deliver his speech. Your time is 12 minutes. Please unmute your mic and share your screen. Hello, Dr. Miza. If you can hear me, if you can please unmute your mic and share your screen.
Yeah, so just a few seconds, I'm just sharing the slides.
Cordy?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I believe that he may take some time, so let him. But meantime,
Okay.
I can see one of my friends from Russia, Vladimir Marvev. He has joined. So, Vladimir, are you there? Vladimir?
Yes, Professor.
Yeah, so I request you to say a few words about the circular economy in Russia. Meantime,
Okay.
let him prepare his PPT. Yeah, Vladimir.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor Gosh, and thank you so much, all the organizers. It's very interesting event, very interesting forum. And of course, I would like to share some information about the circular economy approaches in the Russian Federation by now. Now Russia started in 2021. Russia started the federal project, Circular Economy. And this project includes everything about the legislation, about the building of eco-industrial parks and the industrial symbiosis. And of course, it includes not only municipal solid waste, it includes all kinds of waste, industrial waste as well. And I must tell that, of course, education of the specialists who will provide their policy of the Russian government concerning the circular economy approaches also will be in this sphere. So we will be very glad to continue our cooperation with Ghana, with African Association, and of course, I'm very happy that Professor Gosh, thank you so much for the efforts you provide in this sphere. And I'm sure that our technological approaches, our technological news also will be demanded from those countries who provide the circular economy concepts in Africa, in Asia, and in other countries. So, Professor, I'm always, I will be in contact with you, and we will continue our cooperation and will be participating in autumn in India in their ICON SVM forum. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marev. We now will move on with the next presentation, food losses and waste at vending points and households in Kumasi metropolitan area. Dr. Kojo Miza.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. And I thank the organizers for this opportunity, and I apologize for this few hiccup. But just to say that food waste losses and wastage is a very, very important aspect, because you consider the hunger is a key thing that in the continent of Africa, we are trying to avoid. And to avoid hunger, there's a need for us to look at some of the things that contribute to hunger. So this work is in place. So for the outline, I think I have this outline, and we'll share on them. So as a way of introduction, we look at food losses and food waste. It could be two terms that could be conflicting or could be so confusing. If it's a losses, we talk about the production cycle from the harvest to storage and transportation. And in Ghana, we have a lot of food locked up there. Mostly we talk about the post-harvest losses. And for wastage, we talk about the consumer level where food is thrown away. Globally, we know that about 30% of food that is produced is either lost or wasted, and that will amount to about 1.3 billion tons of waste lost. And the cost is in trillions, about 2.6 from the FAO, sorry for FA, but it's FAO. So in Ghana, if you trigger it down to Ghana, it's about 3.2 million tons of food waste. And that is about 64 or almost 65 billion from a study which has been reported by Frimpong, but was done by the Danish embassy. But if you break this one down into various cycles, like the losses then to the consumer level and others, it's about 1.7 million tons from the distribution level. That is what is lost. About 945,000 or 46,000 at the consumer level, then about 578,000 tons at the retailing level. And per capita, it is about $340 per person in a year. And mostly we look at it, the losses from fruit waste, vegetable waste, cereal, and tuber. And we know fruit waste is the one that is most lost. About 50% of what is harvested is lost. And we look at this one as a major concern because of the increasing hunger, as I said earlier, in Africa, and we need to resolve that. So the next slide, I look at some of the pictures on waste that is transported. We transport it from the various sources of production to the market and they retail them. So just trying to link the cycle to you, and some are transported. And those that are not able to go down the market are lost as waste. So you can see the heap of waste at the market site. And the best thing that we do mostly is to collect them and dispose them at the dump site. And we look at some few statistics for disposal. We realized that the Ghana Statistical Service had data, which they were talking mostly about the communal container site disposal and collection from homes. You look at the disparity, but somebody did a comprehensive work in Accra who was saying that for formal waste collection, it's a very, very, it takes much of the collection services, about 45%. The informal sector is also making inroad about 25%. I think they have said a lot about it. The communal container site is reduced because of the services that are provided by the household. And then we have other indiscriminate disposal, burning, buried, and other forms of them. So we realize that the waste collection services are more improved in the urban areas, with even Accra recording about over 85%. So we look at the management cycle from collection at the various points to the disposal. But now we have other disposal from transfer station, sorry, we go to the composting site and other places, which actually contribute to the circular nature of the management. We also look at the reason why we should concentrate on this study. Why this study? Data is not available. We also look at the need to plan projects or programs for value addition, the valorization programs, and also for advocacy to reduce food waste and a move to prevent hunger. And it's key in the SDG 12.3, cleaner production, and that aspect talks about food waste reduction. So in terms of the approach to this work that was done in the household and also at the vending point, in a diagrammatic way, I will summarize it saying that, we look at where in the Kumasi area that we did, we stratified the areas into socioeconomic areas. Then the vending points, selected some of the vending areas. In fact, we categorized them into three: the bigger restaurants and the mini or the smaller ones, and also the local food vending point, what we call chop bar. And for household, I think I have
Dr. Meiser, please, if you can speed up, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, so we look at this from different points. And so that is the data. If I share with you the data, we segregated them from household level into different components. And from there, we can realize that the food waste production is about 48% of the waste stream, 79% from the biodegradables, and also per capita at the household level is about 0.33 kilogram per person per day. And that amounts to 120 kilogram per person in a year. At the vending points, you realize that we have processing waste, that's with the preparation of the food. That takes about 56 or 57% of the waste. That is what produced on average from all the vending points. And we have soup production and soup for feeding and other also occupying. So processing waste is the highest. Then we also talk about the questionnaire that was administered to consumers to find out from their satisfaction level whether the food that they prepare has a problem or not. But most of them were satisfied. We have closer to 70%, and few dislike the ways that the food that they prepare. And some also complain about that not meeting their expectation. So in terms of the per capita generation, we realize that the bigger restaurant generate more of the waste, about 0.2 kilogram, and the smaller one about 0.26, and the chop bar 0.2. The reason being that the bigger restaurant, those who visit have the purchasing power, so they are able to purchase a lot. And one of the inciting reasons being that people at the time buy what they can eat, though they know that what they are buying they cannot eat, but they have to sometimes impress a bit, so they buy more from some of the.
Dr. Meiser, if you can please wrap up your presentation, you're out of time.
So in terms of reduction, we propose that there should be a deliberate attempt to store food at the various locations where food are what we call produced from the field. Then the short term or medium term, there should be processing of food, storing them in the refrigerators and other things for longer time. So that, and for long term, road or access to farms should be made clear or should be prepared so that farmers can have a better route for their transportation of their goods. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Meiser. We ask that you stop sharing your screen and put your mic on mute. The next presentation are concerns of residents living close to landfill site at Nankofa landfill site of Ghana. We have Dr. Shine Francis Bedema, who's a senior lecturer, University of Environment and Sustainable Development of Samania, Ghana. Dr. Shine Francis Bedema is a senior lecturer in the Department of Geography and Lecture Sciences, University of Environmental and Sustainable Development, Ghana. His area of specialization is in climate change, water resources, development, and sustainability issues. He holds a PhD in human geography. He has a passion for teaching. I request that you please share your presentation, Dr. Bedema, and you have 12 minutes to deliver your speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you all. My topic, as said by Cordy, is concerns of residents and their participation in management of Nkafoa landfill site in Cape Coast. This work is being done by myself and Dr. Selassie Adanu. This is the outline of the presentation. I will talk a little about introduction, then the methodology that was used to acquire data, results and discussions, then conclusion. When we have time, I'll be able to show some images of waste disposal and its menace in the country. The global daily waste generation in 1965 was estimated at 365 metric tons, and it has been projected to increase by 3,539 metric tons by 2050. More recent studies have given alarming estimates of waste generation throughout the world. Solid waste management issues are therefore big challenges to small and large cities throughout the world, and large amount of budgets are being allocated to manage waste, but still we have a lot of problems with waste management. The increase in global waste has created serious problems that are of environmental and public health concerns. Mieza et al. In 2015 point out that the rate of solid waste generation in Ghana was 0.47 kilogram per person per day. That was in 2015. Right now, it was said to amount to about 121 kilogram per person per day. In view of the challenges of waste disposal, residents close to dump sites are not willing to accept waste within their communities. Smoke nuisance, visual nuisances, leachate pollution, bad odor, and breeding of flies are some of the challenges that the residents face as far as the dump site or landfill sites are concerned. Studies have, however, shown that the participation of citizens in waste management is key to any sustainable waste management, as public participation in waste management involves public education and consultation for effective waste management. Lack of public participation in waste management is believed to have contributed to non-compliance to solid waste management directives, such as refusal to segregate and recycle waste. In municipalities where community waste management efforts were successful, the extent of success was attributed to public participation in and their cooperation with the private sector, which has led to good waste management. It is further argued that awareness creation on waste management improves solid waste management in many cities throughout the world. A survey conducted in the Cape Coast municipality, Cape Coast Metropolis by the World Bank and the Cape Coast Municipal Assembly revealed that solid waste management issues ranked by residents as the second most important issue that need urgent attention. The Nkafoa landfill site near Cape Coast is a site that has experienced uncontrolled dumping of waste, smoke, nuisance, leachate pollution, bad odor, and fly nuisance. In view of the nuisance residents experience, a demonstration was held in September 2014. the road leading to the dump site was blocked, which prevented dumping of waste on the site. Public inquiry showed a lack of public participation in waste management in the area. So the recommendation that came out of this inquiry was that people should be involved in the management of waste in the landfill site for sustainable waste management. So the objectives of this study is very simple. We want to ascertain the major concerns of residents living around the landfill site and find out the forms of public participation in the landfill site based on the recommendations that have been recommended 10 years back. So we use the ladder of participation by Ancien, which shows that the lowest level of participation is manipulation, followed by therapy, informing citizens and consulting them. The middle one is the placation, and the highest level of participation is citizens taking control of the management of their affairs. So we try to see how citizens around the Nkamfua landfill site are participating and attribute the place they are in on the ladder of participation. This is a simple map of the Cape Coast metropolis, and Nkamfua is not far from the coast. So it is just at the immediate right side of the screen. It's closer to the sea and is a little close to the University of Cape Coast. Which methods did we use to gather data for this study? We used the population of the community and derived the number of participants for the study from the population. So in a nutshell, we had 361 participants from the total population, which was around 3,680. So what are some of the issues that the people raised as far as the landfill site is concerned? The major issue that they have outlined was the air pollution that comes from the landfill site. As we know, most of our landfills are always burning. So the citizens around the landfill site complain more about the air pollution in the form of smoke. This was followed by smoke coming from their site. Insects flying around their houses also are some of their challenges. The least issue that they've raised was the birds flying over their area. So the birds will come and perch around their places, and some will perch on their roofs. So these are some of their concerns as far as the landfill site is concerned. So we also went ahead to ask them whether they have been participating in meetings of the assembly to manage the landfill site. And 72, roughly 73% of the respondents says they've never participated. Those who participated has series of issues that they raise concerning their participation. A participant at the focus group discussion points out that the assembly most of the time strategically fixed meeting days during working hours, such that people and elites in the community who can give professional advice will not be able to attend because they also have to go to their work and do their activities. Another one also point out that some citizens do not care about where waste dump sites are located, hence are not bothered to attend public meetings. Participation of the public at meetings to air their views is very important. Also, one assembly member points out that, can you believe that as an assembly member, I am mostly not informed about meetings, and even if the information from such meetings are provided, they come very late, so I could not attend. A former representative of the Nkamfua community at the Municipal Assembly pointed out that although residents deserve to be informed about feedback on whatever decisions that were being made on their behalf, I cannot do it, especially when my work as an assembly member is almost like a voluntary one. So people are just not willing to take part in voluntary activities any longer. So if somebody asks, is voluntarism also still present in Ghana? Are people still doing things voluntarily? Participation of public in meetings was asked, and this is what the citizens proposed should be done so that they will take part in the management of the landfill site. Meetings should be held during the weekdays or weekends, but not weekdays, so that they will also be able to attend the meeting. They said the landfill site should be engineered. As we are aware, most landfill sites in Ghana were planned to be engineered, but they end up not being engineered. So there's people around the community are demanding this. Some majority, about 49%, says that the landfill sites should be relocated because they are not benefiting.
Dr. Bedema, please, if you can wrap your presentation, you have 3 minutes.
As conclusion, this study sought to solicit concerns of residents living in the landfill site on what their main concerns are, and we see what they pointed out as the concerns why they don't participate in the management of the landfill site. It has been shown that public participation in decision-making in the management of the landfill is done through community meetings and organized community cleanups, where some time is used to discuss issues of community concern. We conclude here that people do not participate in the management of the landfill site because they have not been given the opportunity to do so. The district assembly and the landfill managers are not able to give them the opportunity to present their views. Also, they do not avail themselves to manage the landfill site because they said it is voluntary. Nobody is ready to do voluntary work any longer. Participation is on the lowest level of the ladder, as we found out, and we put it at informing the citizens that this is what they are going to do without giving them the chance to take part in it. As a measure to make sure people—
Please note, if you can please close your presentation, Dr. Bedema.
There should be sustainable solid waste management, whereby we move from the traditional approach of managing solid waste to the linear economy principles. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bedema, for your presentation. We request that you stop sharing your screen and then mute your microphone. The last presentation of this session is formalization of the informal waste worker activities in the formal waste management system in Ghana by Dr. Kweku Oduro-Appiah, Department of Water and Sanitation, University of Cape Coast, Ghana. Dr. Kweku Oduro-Appiah, if you are prepared, if you can please share your screen and unmute your mic.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope I can be heard, please.
Yes, we can hear you.
And the screen, is it shared better?
If you can please put it into full presentation mode for us.
Okay. Is it better, please?
It hasn't moved into full screen presentation mode yet.
Okay, I think it's better now. Okay, thank you very much for this conference, and thanks for the organizers. There's a twist a little bit in the title, but it moves on to the same thing. What we wanted to discuss here is how we can unleash the full potential of a group of people. I think most speakers have talked about in being the informal waste sector, so that we can attain the circular economy in developing countries like that of ours. And what I want to take us through, it's maybe being the last presentation to also raise big questions for the future for discussions. And what I want to discuss about in the brief moments is when we talk of the circular economy, which is about a big discussion for this conference, I want to provoke our thoughts. Do we really understand circular economy as a people, especially in developing countries, especially in Sub-Saharan Africa? And so I've asked some 3 questions, but this is also research. There is a current research 2023 and 2017, which says there are about 221 different definitions of circular economy. In 2017, 114 different definitions have been captured. And so when we come to circular economy, and it is moving to hinge on to how a question somebody asked of Dr. Amfo, of why is it Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, and North Africa maybe has achieved some level of organization of the informal waste sector, but not the same for what you call West Africa. We want to ask these 3 questions. Are we, and I want to zoom on to Sub-Saharan Africa, are we ready for the circular economy? Do we have the practices, and are there already best practices of CE that we can hinge on? And that we want to talk about. Another observation of the CE concept is that though we use it most often, in 2015, when the Sustainable Development Goals were enacted and shared, Europe intensified its implementation of the CE. It's something also foundationally they were doing, yet research is telling us that it's more of an ideology in developing countries, not all of them, and it's not yet operationalized. These are food for thoughts that we need to. But irrespective of the 221 different definitions, what seems to be common in the CE is that reuse, reduce, reuse, recycle seems to be prevalent in all the definitions. Then we want to come to what others have presented. In most of our economies, to be frank, I could share examples of what is happening in Ghana with you. That some of 2 presenters have presented the role of the informal waste sector to the solid waste management modernization of developing countries. And we have 2 of them, those who collect our waste from our homes, and those who are on the landfills who are also seeing or identifying what we have thrown away and finding value in it. There's even another group who are in the, what we call that is the electronic waste sector, and who are moving from house to house to buy what we have maybe discarded and they see value in it. What is happening is that I want to share with you, others have shared, what we have found in the Greater Accra regional area is that as we speak, and this raises eyebrows, irrespective of the former sector's contribution to solid waste collection, recent data tells us that 50.1% of the solid waste we collect, wherever we collect it in, especially Ghana, is collected by the informal sector. The ISPs, I go on to call them because we want to refer to them as informal service providers, that they are providing a service. We have estimated they contribute $75 million a year to Ghana's economy. And this one is not they paying money to us, but that is if the work they were doing was to be stopped. This is what it would take government to pay labor and actually infrastructure and equipment to collect their same waste, or pay private formal service providers to do. Currently, we've mapped them and we have 4,000 of them who are collecting waste. And I'm not talking of those who are picking waste or reclaiming waste from the landfill. Even the pulse set of water we drink, which we call it sachet water, we have about 4,000 people now collecting it. To find they call themselves waste, sachet water buyers association or collectors association, but actually they are not collectors. They actually buy from the collectors. 1,600 are registered, but the estimate gives us about 4,000 of them. We found 25 enterprises of intermediate buyers and recyclers. For those of you coming from Ghana who know cable and wireless and the other areas, Dagomba line and others where there's that recycling and processing of plastics that have been collected from the landfill, this is what we find. And together they are helping 5,000 people or the livelihoods of 5,000 people. Recently, we found out that even in the e-waste sector, about 16,000 people are engaged, and they are sustaining about 200,000 people, and they alone contribute to $5 million US dollars to Ghana's economy in terms of what they do. This might not be seen, but the yellow box is telling you that this is the biggest collector of even municipal solid waste in Ghana, the informal collectors. Then we did something also with respect to the recyclers, that is those who reclaim waste. And we've been able to map what they collect. So on the landfill, the PP, that is polypropylene, the IHGP pouches, the sachet water, the HGP, that is what we refer to as the gallons, the metals, they take out of thereof, and eventually what they do back. We are through that, have been able to establish that if I go back, they alone are saving the landfills about this ton amount, 1 million cubic meters in landfill space and 62 million a year in what they recover. The expectation of what they do then is that one would have expected that if such people are contributing that much to the economy and supporting livelihoods of that much, they would have been organized. They would have been recognized. But as we speak, as a country, as a developing nation, as a West African bloc, as a bigger part of sub-Saharan Africa and other developing countries, we pay lip service to these people. We're not doing. I will tell you, even the private corporations or private enterprise who so-called seek to say they want to support them are actually exploiting them. Government itself is exploiting them, of which is no news. What we need to do is to organize them, support them, so that they could save us much more, and even really, as the heading say, explore their full potential. In effect, this is what we do to them. We exploit them, I've mentioned it. They are being harassed. Not long ago, in those in Accra, or you may have heard on the news, the regional minister even told them if they use some streets, they'll be arrested. They have been evicted. We know in Agboglushi, they have been evicted. For those international, you might have heard them in news. The question I go back to end up my presentation is that most local governments do not know or are ill-equipped to manage these IWS, which are called the informal waste sector. Their equipments are at times confiscated. They are not recorded in any labor records in most of our parts of the world, and so on and so forth. They still collect on the landfill side, no provision for them. These are also in literature. Let me not disturb you. What I want to raise about as how we can unleash their full potential towards organization, example, South Africa has adopted, we can adopt. Example, India has adopted, we can adopt. Some example, Latin and South and American have, and we can adopt. What is the role of academia towards what we've suffered? To the one who asked the question, why is East Africa, why is South Africa? In South Africa, there are two teams. Research teams, Melanie Simpson is a common name in the field. And the Center for Scientific and Industrial Research, Godfrey, Linda have been. And critically, over a decade and 2 decades, these people have worked together to, as it were, embrace the IWS. There's no doubt before I come back that there is no doubt the national government and local governments do not have commitment to lead the process. And it may be also because they don't even understand what we call the circular economy. It behooves on academia to do more to help. If you go to South America, I've shared it. If you read the story, it tells us that it was the Catholic nuns who actually embedded themselves like secret societies and really understood these people and then started supporting them. And then they moved the agenda to government to make sure CE or the IWS is embraced. We in researchers here, and I think most of my colleagues who here, either they're in consultancy or also research, maybe would need to look at it again, especially the West African bloc and our colleague from Nigeria and other countries. The story goes the same for what we call India. In Pune, many, Lakshmi and others are doing many things. What can we do here? What we need is, we need to close the data gaps. When it comes to data on these IWS, that's the informal ways, it's very scanty and our research focus is not there. Maybe we need to champion interventions because most works for system modernization pass through our hands as researchers and consultants. And maybe we need to champion the intervention strictly. We did one for the Ghana now has implemented their solid waste management strategy or developed it under the World Bank project, which is called the GARID. And we have consciously and with this evidence shown them that we need to specifically involve these IWS in the interventions. If somebody or some group of people are collecting 50.1% of the waste, then there seems to be a reason for us to zone them and include them in there. And then maybe we need to include participatory action research processes also in our action, because if they don't know, what we've realized with our small work with the Accra Metropolitan Assembly is that having sat with them and undertaking such a research, it has built their capacities and it has changed their perception, because people see this IWS as a nuisance. Even those implementers who would have to rely on them to implement the Cs. And so I would advocate through our research is that maybe researchers on the call will need to have a real look after this and see how we can involve them. What it
Dr. Oduro-Opia, if you can please wrap your presentation, you're out of time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What it means that something is still mixing and that needs to be fixed. The IWS are the advocates of CE in our part of the world. There is no other organization, there's no other company, even under the lip service of EPR systems by these companies, there is no contribution whatsoever, forgive me for these words, because there's research showing that they are contributing to CE. We don't have the foundation to make sure that manufacturing processes really reflect in the adoption of CE. So what we need is that what are the best practices? The IWS is doing a marvelous job already. Researchers have to be their advocates, and then let's try to see how we can improve upon them. Paul, we can improve upon them from taking them from the landfill sites and making sure that maybe we help through the implementation to create what we call bring back centers in small areas so that they move from there, and then individuals or householders will rather send the waste to them than sending it back to the landfill before we bring it back to the system. My time is up. There's more we could have discussed. I like this to share with this. Two roads diverge in the wood, and this, I think by Robert Frost. We always have to take the ones that is less traveled by. It's a difficult task, but I think researchers would have to. This session is more of a brainstorming, and through that, we'll find a way to organize them. We'll find a way to make sure that they become part of the mainstream, and therefore the organization becomes a process other than trying to convince people every day from the outside. Thank you for your time, and I think there will be room for questions and maybe for answers. Thank you once more.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Oduro-Opia. I ask that you stop sharing your screen and mute your mic. Very excellent presentation, particularly on the exploitation of waste pickers, which we do see very frequently here in Ghana. So I think you made some very strong points. Looking at the chat box, it doesn't look as if we have any questions. I know there is a comment from Professor Ghosh that says it's really exciting that an estimated 4,000 sachet water plastic buyers who purchase and sell 400 kg per day. He wants to know if you can give more details on that, please. Hello, Dr. Oduro. I believe that was to Dr. Oduro Pio.
Yeah, Dr. Oduro, I want to know one more thing, because you have shown that 15% of the waste are recycled by the informal sector. Is that right? So
please ask your question again.
Yeah, 15% of the waste are recycled by informal waste pickers.
Actually, it is 90% of, when I say 15, it's in context. To Frank, if there's any recycling that goes on, especially in Ghana, it is more of the informal sector. So it's rather about 85% rather by the informal sector. The 15% was in context of the total waste we generate and how percentage that is recycled.
Okay. And what about the rest? Whether these are going to the landfill side or there is any formal recycling sector?
There are few formal recycling sector, but they do a little. The rest go back to the landfill. There's some go back to the system. I think one of our presenters showed us how waste is scattered at times on the dump sites. So most of them go to the landfill site. But currently under the, what we call the National Action, what we call Plastic Partnership, there is some form of awareness being created, but most of them still ends up on the landfill side.
So that's good. I want to work with the group that how much is the waste being recycled, how much is by the waste pickers, what are the scope of having, because unless and otherwise the waste management, this waste recycling seen as a business model, then people not be interested for recycling. So how the business model can be developed. So all these things on this, I like to work with this group on collaborative research projects. So, however, all the presentations were very exciting and a lot of information sharing. And I believe that there are a lot of learning points with respect to the African waste management and circular economy is concerned. So thank you very much. Over to Cody.
Are there any other questions for this particular session as we prepare to close out? If there aren't, then I would like to hand the mic back to Dr. Sulemana, who will give some final remarks for us.
No. Cody, now
yes,
you have to give back the microphone to the chair and co-chair for their summary.
No problem. So if the chair and co-chair, I don't think Amma is on. So please, are the coordinators, the co-chairs still around?
Chair
if Amma Anshui, if you are around.
Who are the chair and co-chair?
Mr.
Venkat Cherupuru
and then Amma Anshui.
Yeah,
I don't think Amma was on. Yeah, I didn't see them in the participants.
Oh.
That's why I just moved to the next area.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Venkat is there. No, that is another Venkat.
Okay. I didn't see him. Yeah, I checked before I moved on.
No problem. You go ahead.
Okay. So I'd like to, yes, please.
Excuse me, Cody, there's a small announcement again. There will be two special sessions on 90 minutes each in 13th ICON SWMC and IPLA Global Forum 2023 in Mumbai during November 29th to December 2nd, 2023 in hybrid mode. Those who are interested to participate as speaker, please write to Dr. Sulemana and Professor Shadhan K. Ghosh and Professor Michael Ghosh You can write your name, affiliation, email ID, mobile in the chat box. Thank you, Cody. You may proceed.
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever Sutipta and Cody was announcing, these two special sessions will be conducted only on waste management and circular economy in African countries. So that's why you know that we are now giving a special focus to African countries in the next conference. So that's why we are announcing this. If anybody is interested, you can write to us. We will coordinate that. And Sulemana and from Ghana and Professor Koech from Kenya, they will be coordinating these sessions. Thank you. Over to.
Great. Okay. So Dr. Alassane Sulemana, lecturer at the Department of Environmental Science at Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Kumasi, Ghana. We'd like to invite you to summarize today's sessions and give any remarks that you'd like to. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Cody Aziz, for coordinating the second section. And we are grateful to all the presenters too for the wonderful presentations that they have made. To summarize today's technical sections, we had two sections and was to have 4 speakers for the first section, but as we were told, one was engaged, and so he had to present in the second section. So in effect, 3 speakers presented in the first technical section, and we had 6 speakers presenting in the second section. In section 1, Dr. Richard Amfu-Otu presented on policy and legal frameworks for the adoption of circular economy in Africa. He started with increase in population and other factors causing an increase in waste management in developing countries, which is a very big challenge, and the need to shift from the linear to economic model of waste management. And this included policies and legal frameworks, which were actually weak in Africa. And some of the existing circular economy regulatory and policy frameworks in Africa, which he presented, one of the points he raised was African Circular Economy Alliance, Durban Declaration for Environmental Sustainability. He said many countries are now doing their best, although countries such as South Africa, Kenya, Rwanda, Morocco are a bit advanced than others. He emphasized on the need for national circular economy strategies if these initiatives can be achieved. He spoke about regulatory frameworks, incentives to funding mechanisms, and then ended with a need to speed up the policy and regulatory frameworks that have started in countries. Then in the second presentation, engineer Dr. Glenn Jima touched on the potential decarbonization actions in Ghana, JOSPON's initiatives in the climate change action, and he also stressed on increasing waste generation, requiring effective management. And some of the initiatives he spoke about by JOSPON include material recovery setting, where he touched on recycling facilities that are built in Ghana by the JOSPON group of companies. He also spoke about the fact that JOSPON is being driven by environmental, social governance policies, and touched on the need for investment reforms, policy and regulatory reforms if the circular economy agenda in waste management can be achieved. He ended with the transition lines, where he touched on no disruption to the employment value chain, and then an enhanced job creation for workers in the sector. Then the last presentation for the first section by engineer Dr. Emmanuel Chukwuma was on circular economy, household waste perspective, where he spoke about the challenges in incorporating circular economy in waste management, household waste composition, as well as the feasibility of circular economy in waste segregation. he touched on sustainable household waste management based on the waste management hierarchy and stress on the 3 R's of waste management. These include reduce, reuse, and then recycle. And he ended with the treatment methods for organic wastes, for which one of them was composting. In a technical section 2, Dr. Emmanuel Foku Amankwa spoke on the role of...
Sulemana, can I interrupt? Yeah,
please come
in. You may not expand that much because we don't have much time.
Okay. No problem. Then I'll quick now.
Yeah.
In the second, thank you, Prof. In the second section, Dr. Emmanuel Foku Amankwa touched on the role of informal sector in solid waste management, and he ended with the need to tackle the missing link and the tale of the uneasy partnership. Mr. UV Parikas also spoke on policy and legal framework for adoption of circular economy in Ghana and summarized with the need for policy framework as a boost to build circular economy in India. Dr. Kofi Sechere-Boateng touched on the management of solid waste in our cities, challenges and the prospect, the case of Ghana, and he also touched on the need for integrated sustainable solution and implication to government. Dr. Kojo Mieza also presented on the food losses and waste at vending points and household in the Kumasi metropolitan area of Ghana, and ended with the need to embrace measures to decrease food losses and wastage. Dr. Francis Shine-Bedema next touched on the concerns of residents living close to landfill sites at Nkafua landfill site of Ghana, and indicated that people do not participate because they've not been given the opportunity, and participation is on the lowest level of the ladder in farming. Dr. Kweku Oduro presenting on unleashing the full potential of the informal waste sector towards the attainment of CE and the SDGs in developing countries, also touched on one important area about academicians supporting the CE process through data gaps, championing intervention and use of participatory action research, and ended by saying it's difficult, but sustainable decisions need to be made. In effect, all presentations were very relevant and touch on different aspects on how circular economy can effectively be integrated in waste management. We therefore thank all the presenters for wonderful presentations. I now hand over the mic to Dr. Saka and then Professor Gush. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sulemana, for beautifully summarizing today's program and all the presentation. The concluding remarks were supposed to be given by Mr. Satish Kamath, President SCPL, Sri City, Chennai. Is Mr. Kamath here? Dr. Venkat is, I don't see him.
Yeah, yes.
Good afternoon. Sutripta,
Yes.
Kamath has some urgent business, so he has deputed the DGM of Sri City Private Limited, Dr. Venkateshwaran. So he will speak on behalf.
So we are privileged to have here Dr. Venkat of Sri City. He's very dynamic and he's leading Sri City in a big way. And they are doing a lot of work in waste management in different sectors that was highlighted during the 12th ICON SWM conference. And we have at ISW MAW, we have built up a close collaboration with Sri City, and Dr. Venkat has a major role to play in that. So I request Dr. Venkat to kindly give some concluding remarks. Your time is 5 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sutripta. So good afternoon and good evening to all the speakers, and more importantly to the participants. Today, in a short span of time, we have covered a lot of area and a lot of information, and the participants has given a wide variety of case studies and with the examples. Now, I would like to resonate the following outcome of this webinar. for a crisp in a short way for the understanding. So the overall, the waste management with the circular economy approach is the serious subject which is uniformly accepted by all the people. Then more importantly, informal waste workers association are forming some special kind of bodies or association, which is very, very important at this crucial time. So the last speaker, Mr. Appaya, also has surprisingly presented that they were over-exploited. All the informal sector people have been over-exploited. Then the next important thing is community level participation, and parallelly there is a much importance for funding and incentives from the government as well as the technology transfer is required. Places like countries under developing countries like Ghana, India and all, we have abundant human resources availability. But at the same time, we cannot compete with the Western countries with the high-end machineries and all those things. So the available human resource has to be carefully, has to be tapped and it has to be utilized in this sector. And next one, based on as an industrial park developer, based on our experience, we also insist that decentralized collection and storage is very important and moreover, very cost effective when comparing with the centralized infrastructure setup for waste management. In terms of both solid waste and liquid waste management, decentralized is the best option for this. And overall, at all the developing countries, we need a further more stringent or look into the policy and as well as the legal framework to support for the waste management and in the circular economy. And this overall, the workshop stressed that capacity building is another important area where needs to be emphasized and more important for developing all the stakeholders in the entire process. And overall, the engagement overall for your engagement and way forward for the sustainable and environmental practices and to mitigate the climate change, we have to incorporate all the circular economy practices in the waste management thing. So once again, thank you for all the participants and looking forward to continue working closely for the upcoming 13th ICON SWM and IPLEA Global Forum 2023, likely to be held in Mumbai, India. Thank you. Thank you for all the participants and the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Venkat, for your concluding remarks. And I now invite Professor Michael Ghosh from Kenyatta University, Kenya, to say a few words for a minute before we go over to the vote of thanks. Professor Michael Ghosh, you're here.
Just 1 minute. Thank you very much. I would like to say that I'm sorry I joined the meeting a little late because of other technical issues. My wife and I are in the US visiting family and also doing very many other things around here. And so I managed to join in a little late, but I just want to say that it's a great pleasure for the committee that did the preparation and the arrangements of this Ghana, India, West Africa waste management, circular economy that went on today. I was able to listen to the last presenter, Dr. Oduro Appaya, and I was very impressed with the presentation that he made and all the summaries that were also made and the questions asked, particularly the question asked by or comments made by Professor Ghosh. And I just want to appreciate and say that it is good and that it is good collaboration between India, Ghana institutions and colleagues in Ghana and all Africa. And one of the things that we need to do is cooperate, collaborate, and work together on all of this in order to manage and safeguard the environment, the nature that gave us, so that we restore nature, because nature has been destroyed by us greatly, significantly. And what I would like to say that As I talk now, I find other institutions, including the developed institutions such as the USA, in the place or in Massachusetts where I graduated, or my wife and I graduated many, many years ago, where we are now. We are so impressed to note that the plastic waste, plastic papers in the supermarkets now are not a practice. They have switched into doing recyclable and brown bags instead of the plastic, and that is very encouraging. And we need to do that. All of us need to learn these good lessons of circular economy, waste management, sustainable waste management, for all of us to contribute to restoring nature. So generally, what I would like to say is that I actually have another appointment that I need to run to now that is going to be taking place shortly, and we don't have the cars here, we use vehicles. So I want to just say that thank you so much for everything, and may God continue blessing us to succeed. And
but
I want
before you run, are you not inviting us for 20th program for Kenya?
Oh yeah, before I run. So like I had encouraged some of my colleagues to participate in this conference, in this meeting, and I believe they did. But we have the Kenya, India, East African conference on June 20th. And we also encourage the West African community, the group that participated in this meeting, to participate, and it will be on June 20th, and we'll share the link and the advert to you so that we can all participate. So in general, we want to thank you all. I have to run. May God bless us, and we'll meet again on June 20th. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Michael Ghosh. And now I invite Dr. Lloyd Larbi, lecturer, University of Environment and Sustainable Development, Ghana, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks. Dr. Lloyd Larbi.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Ghana. Good afternoon, India. Yeah. It's been a great day. Yeah, I deem it an honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this special conference. Yeah, let me first thank Almighty for giving us a very successful conference today. Yeah, first and foremost, I like to thank all the participating institutions for this collaboration. We look forward for more collaborations in the future. Thank you very much to all of them. Yeah, so I would also like to thank the lead for this conference. That is Professor Ghosh. Yeah, Professor and then the organizing team have really done a lot of work, inspiring us, working towards the goal of conducting this conference. Thank you very much, Prof. We appreciate you. We also appreciate you, Prof, for the keynote address that you gave, really highlighting on the aspects to be considered for sustainable waste management and the circular economy. We appreciate that a lot. And I know that a lot of things are going to come up after this conference. We have learned a lot. I think we appreciate Dr. Rahman for sharing sustainability concept of his university. That was very insightful. We are also grateful to Professor Edward Wiafe of University of Environment and Sustainable Development for his inspiring inaugural speech. Thank him so much for his precious time. Yes, and we are also grateful to our coordinators who have been so excellent for this conference. That is Ms. Kodi Aziz, Dr. Al-Hassan Suleimana, and then Dr. Sutripta Saka. I think they have done very, very well. We thank them for their excellent coordination and effective time management. and also to the chairs of the two technical sessions. We are also grateful to you, for steering the affairs of the technical session. And to our distinguished speakers, we are truly enriched by your inspiring and insightful projects and presentations. We thank you for your precious time and for all the good works that you are doing for the world. That is Dr. Richard Amfu Otu, Dr. Glenn Jima, Engineer Dr. Emmanuel Chukuma, Dr. Ebenezer Fukuo Amankwa, Dr. Kofi Sechere Boateng, Dr. Kojo Miza, Dr. Francis Wedema, Dr. Kweku Odro Apia. We appreciate you so much. Yes. And we also continue to thank all the participants online, and even students. Without you, this conference wouldn't have been a success. We appreciate you. We appreciate all the questions that you have asked. Yes, and we say thank you very much. And last but not the least, the all volunteers, everyone who helped one way or the other to make this conference. Truly appreciate you, and we say thank you very much. May God bless us all, and we hope to meet soon in the next conference. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Dr. Lloyd Larbi. I now request all the participants to kindly share their cameras. We need a group photograph. Please share your cameras.
Are you taking our attendance by seeing the face? Sita?
That has been a norm. In all online.
Yeah. Who is taking the photograph? Sulemana, are you taking the photograph?
No, I think Dinesh.
Please, whoever can, you please take the photo and you can send it across. And Sutipta, which you have to tell that all the participants who have participated, they will be issued a certificate of participation. So in that way, you please send your full name, which should appear in the certificate. So in the same email address which was given to you, Sulemana, and my email ID, you can send. Okay. And have you taken the photograph?
Yes, sir, it's done.
It's done for both the screen? For both the screen or only one screen? Because there are a number of people, no?
Yes, sir, taken.
You have taken?
Yes, sir.
That's good. Okay, excellent. So call it a day, and thank all of you very much for your cooperation, and you be prepared for our next conference so that more people from Ghana can attend online or physically. You start applying for your funding for travel, whoever are interested to join India, Mumbai, or whoever are not interested to travel, then you can prepare your paper and submit to us. And if anybody is interested to work as a member in the country-specific working group of Ghana, so they can write to Sulemana and me, so that we can consider for inclusion in the country-specific working group for the conference. So thank you very much. Over to Sutripta.
That is the end of the one-day seminar today. And I thank all participants. I thank Professor Ghosh and the organizing team from Ghana. I especially thank my fellow coordinators, Dr. Sulemana and Ms. Cordy Aziz. So thank you all. A very good day to all from Ghana, and a very good evening and a good night to all from India. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you too.
Somebody wants to say something.
See you.
Somebody wants to say something? Who is there? Yeah, Ebenezer, do you want to say anything?
No, I was just saying goodbye to everyone.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, Richard, Ebenezer, Lloyd, and everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you again.
Yeah, well done. Well done.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sulemana.
Yeah.